So thanks a lot, and thanks for being passionate on the chairs, and welcome, and thanks for having us after lunch. I hope we will try to, keep up the energy. And for lawyers, technology, I don't know if the energy goes up or the energy goes down. So we will try to give you some examples. So we had a chat with a panelist. I'm really honored to have, such a, incredible experience among the panelists. So if you don't mind, I will ask you to give few seconds of presentation in the light of the technology, actually, in your role, and giving us a little bit of elevator speech on what would you think is the importance in your role about technology, and it really just 1 minute each, even a little bit less, to give us what you do and what is the role of technology, and then we're going to go into the the real the core of the session. Sahid, you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you very much, Francesca, and thank you for ClickAway for having us as a speaker here. Thank for the audience for being here also. My name is Maher, and I have 17 years of experience with L&T, Larsen & Toubro. It's a multinational company headquartered in Mumbai and having more than 50 branches worldwide. And it's one of the top 15 contractors ranked actually among worldwide. So I, the head of contracts, and I have I hold a master's degree in construction law and dispute resolution, as well as a bachelor degree in industrial engineering. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Building, Chartered Institute of Arbitration, as well the American Petroleum Institute and the Lebanese Order of Engineers and Architects. Regarding your question, actually, from a legal perspective, definitely L&T as being a multinational company and ranked one of the 15 top contractors worldwide, we were a pioneer actually in implementing the digitization technologies, which helped us in servicing and delivering the best service to our clients. And from a legal perspective, it helped a lot in providing accurate and reliable data that without it we cannot actually provide our risk assessments for the pre and post contract management. And in my opinion, in the future, definitely reliance on technologies will increase, and this will help in the resolution of the disputes in the construction industry. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So you see a good future then on technology. Abhishekh, you want to be next?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Very good afternoon, and thank you so much for this wonderful event. It's a pleasure to be here and to be exchanging our knowledge and experiences with all the experienced professionals. So, answering to Francesca's questions with respect to technology and the and how it is useful to the lawyers. Uh, I would, as Saeed has already been mentioned about the importance of technology. I'll not take much of the time. I would simply say that during COVID, uh, it gave us a good lesson in terms of to manage or to have a central repertoire of the database for all the contracts that we are being executed across the having a multinational company and having a vendors of more than 10 to 20,000. It's become very difficult for us to monitor each and every contracts on a manual basis. And therefore the technology is surely with the process of digitizations that could really help us in terms of mitigate this risk of managing it on an isolation on a silo basis on with the business verticals rather than having a central control over it. And this could also help us in case of defending any kind of a future litigations that we may envisage in future. And this because this database would give us a lot of informations which you may not it may not be possible while getting it manually or chasing your business teams to provide the informations. One of the examples I can give you that we had a kind of money suit was filed in Bangladesh, and in 2019 the server was crashed and we lost all the data. The reason being is that there was no central repertoire and there was no cloud-based database that moment of time. And now, while we are defending the case in Bangladesh court, it become very difficult for us to provide with the substantial evidence, because though we know the matter is in our favor, but again, the court of law, it always give a judgment based on the evidence that we provide. So therefore, it's become very important for us to get into the habit of using the technology, and also create a culture across the company and the management to emphasize to use that and try to make it more on the digitization level. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Vandana, what is, if you give us your elevator speech on technology for your future?
Yeah, so hi everyone, myself Vandana, and I take care of the legal department for Tata 1MG. We are an health tech solution. So tech is within the name of the business itself. So we have a lot of technology solutions within the legal team itself. A lot of them outsourced and some of them been built in-house, and this work is still in process. But what it has helped actually, just I think Shahid and Abhishekh have covered more of it, but just adding to it, it has given us a platform wherein the business teams, the legal team, actually are talking to each other along with the finance team. It's a common platform that we have got, basis which the efficiency of the conversion that we were doing, the tats, etc., have also improved. And adding to it, the dashboards and all are very helpful altogether in order to have a proper view, a bird eye view from the perspective that where we are and what we need to achieve. So net, it's a lot of homework that needs to get in, because it's not like a quick solution. But that investment actually is worth putting in, integrating the tech with the legal processes together. It will not take away the legal processes, but yeah, merging both them together is actually a good solution to work around on. Thank you.
Thank you. Hussein.
Thank you, Francesca, for this opportunity. So, working with a legal tech company, I can tell you that since 2019, the appetite for digitization has been really expanded too much. So, if you want to talk numbers, I can tell you that the investments are like above $15 billion in the legal tech industry. And I know today I'm talking with legal practitioners and legal team. And if you want to see, or if you want to imagine where this legal technology would become, just look at your neighbor, look at the financial technology, look where the financial technology has become, the cryptocurrency, the disruption in the industry. And you can imagine the same patterns going for the legal technology.
So it looks like we need to be a little bit afraid.
No.
Let's see. Maybe we'll have the final question, whether we need to be afraid or whether we need to be actually excited about it. So, Hussein, if you don't mind, I will stay with you now. So, because before going into the force majeure and the use of AI, I would like to understand, being, you work for this a company, a tech company is really enabling the transformation, digital transformation of in-house legal team and also law firm, small size, big size. So how do you see the change of and the use of AI in the implementation, and especially on the contract cycle, because we're going to speak about contract, so it's going to be impactful in terms of how we manage the contract cycle.
Yeah. So if you look at the industry now, you do have the contract lifecycle management solution. Legal teams are using them, right? Law firms are using them. It's not a big secret. However, the next step is to complement these solutions with AI technologies, right? And we are seeing large investments that are being undertaken from legal tech companies. So why artificial intelligence? Because artificial intelligence and contract lifecycle management solutions will be helping legal teams in authoring contracts, drafting contracts, minimizing the contract lifecycle management process. They will help in detecting anomalies in large amount of contracts. They will help legal team make better decision making when they use data sets and analytics, and you know that. But this is something that contract lifecycle management solution they cannot do alone. So artificial intelligence using defined algorithms, using defined natural language processing, tax extracting technologies, they will definitely help companies like the one that Abhishekh is, I think, working with large numbers of contracts. They need decisions. They don't need to spend more times on doing the same thing, the repetitive task. They want to make decisions. They want to visualize their data, not in a laborious process. They want to see it easily, right? And they want to make business decisions about it.
It will not freeze the employment opportunities for the legal professionals implementing the AI technologies. Rather, it will increase the efficiency level and the turnaround time, and to make it a more qualitative in nature.
Yeah, so we're already going into the positive side. So if you don't mind, I will probably make a question to myself, if you don't mind. And it's no, I'm just joking, but I discussed with the panelists that maybe it might be good to give you what in Accenture as in-house legal team we have been doing globally. So we have a video that actually may give you a sense. It's been Accenture in-house lawyer, we are almost 3,000 people. So in-house legal team, we don't do legal professional services, but we have been always asking ourselves how we can transform before somebody else is going to transform us, right? How we can give the best work to our team. And of course, everything starts with people. There are some numbers can help you, and then we will continue the conversation. So at least I can probably get a little bit of attention also for some of the colleagues over there with the video. Can we launch the video now, if you have it? Let's see if it works, huh? Otherwise, we continue the panel.
With over 2,850 legal professionals worldwide, we're one of the world's largest in-house legal functions, comparable in size and scale to a global top 5 law firm. Early on, we realized that the need to transform legal process is a challenge, but it's also a rare opportunity. We saw how technology could power our journey to a data-driven organization. So we set an ambition to become the world's most digitally enabled legal function in a professional services firm. How can innovation free our people for more valuable, interesting work? How can automation help us do more for less? And how can data lead to smarter decision-making and risk management? Our journey started with a people-first approach, building a global network of centers of legal excellence to support local needs. Growing our core business enabled our investment in transformation, from operational capability and responsible culture to campaigns and digital tools. We could now deliver efficiency, compliance, and value. Extensive research produced a new governing charter for our evolving ecosystem, so we better understand what our best day looks and feels like. And our 3-pillar technology transformation strategy is now the touchstone for digital investments. Innovation also moved to the heart of the team, with our legal professionals constantly fueling our in-house incubator, pitching new ideas to deliver better value. So what does this success mean for our largest team? Comprising over 80% of Accenture Legal, sales and delivery are expected to support over 100,000 contracts a year, where over 95% of contracts are not on our paper and 35% are not in English. However, research showed that this complexity and scale couldn't be managed with a single technology solution. Our approach was to develop a unique end-to-end platform ecosystem, an integrated suite of tools that addresses all the functions of this group. Beginning with sales, Manage My Deal offers seamless self-service end-to-end contracting and is critical for driving key data to the rest of the ecosystem. Manage My Contracts is a
Okay, so I hope I give a little bit of sense of what does it mean technology, put some numbers there. So everything started with really people. And we got, great expert here. So change the mindset and change the innovation of the people working every day. So going back to the COVID pandemic and force majeure contract, and Said, I want to go, if you don't mind, to ask you a question to you, because you work for a company, a conglomerate with a presence all over the world, a lot of countries, and I'm sure the level of technology that you're using at the moment is really impacting what you're doing. So, but if you look at the COVID, if COVID has accelerated really the use of technology, the use of AI, especially on the contract.
Yeah, interesting question. From my experience actually here in UAE in the construction sector, we all recall when COVID-19 occurred, it has impacted UAE in March 2020 when the visas and the flights were suspended, as well as the lockdown measures were imposed by the government authorities. So without the usage and the implementation of the digitization technologies, we were unable to continue the performance of the works or the execution of our contracts. The first challenge that I remember that we encountered when COVID happened was a requirement under the contract to have physical signatures of our correspondences, letters, notices, change orders, minutes of meetings, and also to deliver such correspondences to the client or to any other stakeholder by hand, physically, or by courier. So we overcome that challenge by using the e-signature, which is allowed under the UAE applicable laws also, and by utilizing a electronic document management system for the exchange of all those correspondences. The second challenge was the lockdown measures that has been imposed. It actually prevented the mobilization of all our personnel from their countries to UAE or to and from the site also within UAE. The commuting was very difficult. So we overcome this challenge by having for the engineering and the design works some BIM modeling, online BIM modeling, and 3D modeling, as well for the procurement, the ERP business-to-business platform, which enabled all the stakeholders, suppliers, subcontractors, and everybody to access that platform and to work from inquiry till the award of contract online without the use of any hard copies, any printouts, or any scanned copies also. So whatever they were, whenever they agree over everything, they will receive a signed contract, which is signed electronically also. The third challenge that we actually faced was the inspections on site and on the factories. So we also overcome that without the need for the physical witnessing of all our employers. And we have done like virtual communication that live broadcast all such inspections and surveillance actually virtually. On top of that, we have implemented also on site the app, mobile applications for all our actually engineers and supervisors, that no need for everybody to be available there, and we can monitor the progress, and it will actually allow the virtual reporting also with all the dashboards and everything. On our also plant and machinery, we have our GPS tracking system, which can monitor the productivity and analyze help in analyzing where can we actually increase or reduce resources. This is without forgetting definitely the virtual communication via Zoom or Teams that actually helped a lot in having all the meetings for the project management without the physical presence of our management in the project management offices or site offices or factories. Yeah, thank you.
That's I mean, it was interesting, very interesting. And the fact about also the audit or the inspection, I was thinking, Hussein, if we're going to have in the future probably augmented reality to, inspector to come and actually, I don't know if you had that, it was yours.
Actually, yeah.
But I was thinking about augmented reality, all the technology we do, for example, in the factory, that would be applied to the inspection would be amazing, right? Sorry, interrupting.
We are doing actually also virtual reality training simulation for our labor and staff. And it's been very successful also.
Great,
yeah.
great. Vandana, if I may, I would like to ask you, because I know you told me that, there was a tough moment or interesting moment at the time of the pandemic regarding the how you exercise the force majeure provision, and also some learning about the force majeure provision post the pandemic. And even though, I mean, we may consider we're still in the pandemic, hopefully not. But and I will ask Abhishekh, I will come to you afterwards regarding the same.
Yeah. So I'll not touch upon the legal fundamental of the clause, actually. I'll just put it into a few buckets of the practical issues and how we dealt with the practical issues and the learning post that. So force majeure, actually, COVID was something which was super unplanned sort of a stuff that came to us. And considering that it cannot be an implied clause in a contract, it has to be specifically written in the contracts. And looking at it, we all found that multiple of our contracts had the clause and few of them didn't have it. And then coming to the point, the agreements which had the specific clause, what was the drafting with respect to the clause? Were the specific word like pandemics, epidemics, etc. was being covered, or how did we want to actually get it enforced? Pursuant to that, a few developments happened. There are a lot of notifications from various ministries that came into picture. Along with it, there were various judgments which came, which gave us a direction and a light to work on it. But still, the negotiation at that point of time somewhere played in the favor of the company, somewhere didn't played in the favor. However, whatever learning it gave, that at that point of time, all the contracts were required to open and being looked and read at that point of time. That actually gave the light to the importance of the technology with respect to the contract summarization, and if we have automation and all in place. Secondly, the way the clause has been drafted, the provisions that needs to be looked and taken care of while drafting it, and even not the legal team needs to be educated around it, even the business teams when are working on it, when they are doing the first line of negotiations and helping us work on these in their preliminary term sheets and etc., they were also being educated, being told that how they should work around it. So these were the two learnings that came, and pursuant to that, it's not that simple, because the judiciary has to take the final call, etc. But from the legal perspective, whatever can be managed on the contract side is something which has become important with respect to the force majeure clause. And I like Abhishekh to further add, I think, because we both share somewhere similar sort of experience with respect to this.
Yes, and I think, Abhishekh, if you can also give us what has been also the commercial, if any, impediment on the use of force majeure. I know that you got, few experience on impact, but also the legal and commercial impediment on it.
Well, well, COVID has resulted disruptions in the business operations, and the commercial turmoil has affected the ability for the companies to perform its obligations under the contract. Well, with my experience, we being into a sourcing and supply chain management, we are into a fashion apparel business where we manufacture, source, and supply garments to the customers worldwide. As Matthew, a few minutes back, had talked about a lot of ESG compliances and the three important parameters to look at. So while I'll, add in to the ESG part, while we are onboarding vendors, we need to ensure the compliances in pertaining to sustainability and ESG has been complied with before we are onboarding a vendor, because we are into an obligations with the customers that we had signed with, and we need to ensure that these factories and vendors are in complied complied in all as per the applicable laws, whether it is a child prohibition, whether it is a having a proper capacity to run the factory and to deliver the products, or it is a kind of I would say credit worthiness of the vendor, etc. So this really put us into a backseat while we are having a vendor of more than 10,000 across the globe. So that is one of the experience that we had faced, is how to mitigate this risk, and how to onboard this factory with a lack of digitization in place. Because while all these compliances and the audits are being done physically and not on the offline basis, but not on the online basis, but on the offline basis more often. So that was one of the most important challenges that we had faced in terms of, secondly, in terms of while we are looking at the risk that we are carrying from the customer point of view, that we had signed the contract vis-a-vis the risk that we are carrying from the vendor perspective, who had assigned the job to do that. It was become very difficult. Now since we're having more than 10,000 vendors and having a multiple contract in place, it has become very difficult at a one moment of time to find out what is the force measures impact, what would be the commercial impact, commercial impediment or legal impediment, in case of a breach of the obligation under the. So you know it's a matter of it's all depend upon sector to sector basis. Saeed is into the construction sector, I was into the sourcing supply chain sector, so it's depend upon the case to case basis and the business to business basis, how this been taken into consideration, and how the law, the interpretations the lawyers can take, and how the business can react into it. It will all depend upon business to business and case to case basis. So this is what are the few challenges that we had faced across, and that how we try to overcome it. There is a possibility of prevention, there is a possibility of hindrance, or there is a possibility of delay. So hindrance is what which is make substantially impossible to perform the obligation under the contract. And there where when this is all with my little experience, I'm sure with the senior professionals sitting in the hall are much more experienced. I'm just sharing my small experience in terms of what we have faced through, but it's more from the hindrance perspective, which make you substantially impossible to perform the contract. And there where take the excuses, or for the extension of time, or they may lead to the termination without any payment of penalties or damages.
Oh, thanks a lot. That's so true. And so going back to how AI has been playing a role in mitigating, Saeed and Hussein, I would like also to listen from you after about, what you heard from clients, and there've been also peak of demand in that period of time. So Saeed, so do you believe that, AI was able really to mitigate the risk during the pandemic in terms of the force majeure, or even, in general risk on the contract?
Yeah, sure. Artificial intelligence, digitization, has helped us a lot in mitigating the impact of COVID-19 on the performance of contracts in the construction sector. Nobody imagined, has ever imagined before COVID-19, that with such pandemic, we can continue the performance of the contract and the execution of works on site. And in layman terms, actually, when such pandemic happen, the works will get suspended, and if the suspension prolongs, then the contract will get terminated. However, we overcome that, and thanks for the artificial intelligence, and the business continuity benefited all the stakeholders of any projects to continue its performance of the contracts. But having said so, the artificial intelligence actually and the usage of it in its performance of the contracts has exposed a lot of shortfalls and gaps in the existing contracts as well as applicable laws. So if I can actually mention from my experience, it has created a lot of challenge for the contractors who are the harm party usually from COVID-19 in the performance of the contracts. If the business continue, the employer will be happy, and definitely also the contractor. But the remedies for the contractors, when the work continue without having provisions under the contract, it will be very difficult for it. For instance, as an example, like we are using the FIDIC standard contracts here in UAE, as well as the UAE Civil Code, the applicable law actually does not have provision. Okay, COVID-19, it qualifies the criteria of the definition of force majeure from an unforeseeability measure, from unavoidability, uncontrollability, and it's an external event that's not induced by any of the parties. However, there is a fifth element that is required for you to benefit from that relief, to have any extension of time or compensation of cost, is actually to render the performance of the contract to be impossible or to prevent any obligation under the contract. So from that perspective, the business has continued on site. We have some maybe minor suspensions here or there on site due to the spread of the virus for the labor on the camps or on the sites and the factories. However, most of our delays and hindrance, as Abhishekh rightly mentioned, it was a hindrance due to the delays of the important deliveries and HSE releases measures on site. So because of that, in my view, we should actually redraft our contracts and we should also relook into our applicable laws, our jurisdictions and our jurisprudence here and all over the world also to look into the possibility that the pandemic can occur and still because due to the benefit of the artificial intelligence, you can continue performance of the contracts. So everybody can have a balanced contract between the parties. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that is so true. I think everybody have been looking through contracts and understand, what does it mean in terms of I can still perform some of the contract actually because of technology, because sometimes remote working, for example, was possible, right? And Hussein, anything to add on that? I was just sorry, I was not while we were discussing, I was thinking how was at the time the demand. There was like more demand from client. There was more demand. What was the approach of clients, in the transformation? There's been more demand during the time of the COVID.
So basically, of course, as I told you, the appetite for digitization has increased with COVID. But this is something that legal teams they understood or they realized within COVID-19. They suddenly saw themselves. They are not. And the majority of the cases, they are not fully equipped to working from home, right? They took a while before adjusting from working at home. And they later on realized that working from home is also efficient. They can do stuff when they are at home, right? But they only need to be equipped with the right tool, and not even any tool. They need to accept it, right? They need to accept it. And I think this is another part of this discussion panel, how to accept a legal tool, right? Especially with seniors in the company. And this is another discussion. But yes, the appetite is increased. And as I told you, the investments undertaken by legal tech companies, and I know from my company, we are investing a lot in changing the mentalities and changing the technologies, making it easier, making it adaptable, so that lawyers and in-house and basically big and small law firms, they can use it easily. So
and that's helped me for the next question to Vandana, because I know, Vandana, you had a lot of experience in terms of using technology on writing contract. And so I think it goes back to what Said was saying, we learned something, and then actually looking agreement in general, all of us as a legal professional, we said, oh, maybe we should do something different. So how was, your experience, where you are now in terms of using technology on drafting contracts?
So we started prior to COVID. A lot of things were there which were automated, but it was a mixed model of having a lot of things offline and a lot of things were on the tool itself. But bringing that culture that everyone start using the tool was very tough prior to COVID. Post-COVID also, it's not that easy that you ask the business guys and the different teams, etc., start using the tool, because it's a change in the habit, because writing an email on a request is very easy. And if the tool has been used partially, or any of the tool we integrate is been used partially, it will not give the results exactly appropriately that we look around. So the difficulty, the challenge, actually, the first challenge was aligning everyone on the same page, that what's the importance and why we need to do it. And in my case, it was little difficult to start with, but I think the journey went a little smoother because the management was somewhere aligned on the concept, and business got aligned and various teams got aligned, and therein it went to a process. It's still a work in progress, but we are doing multiple things out of it. 50% of our contracts have been shifted to click wrap contracts, which is the part of the business process itself, which has helped the lawyers within the team also to work on a lot of other productive work. Rather than doing the same sort of contracts at the same point of time, their learning curve is also increasing. They are doing a lot of research work, working with the various business teams. Even business, they are becoming a business lawyers is what my team agenda currently is. Rather than just doing the legal work, they've started working with the business closely. And that's a development that they are getting inside of the business, so they understand the business and they understand the legal area within that. So that is wherein the time that got saved doing the standard work got utilized within the team and is helping the organization plus the legal team together. Secondly, the tool, building a tool itself needs a lot of patience, and there are a lot of nuances around it. It's what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. It takes a lot of patience, but within the work that has to be run around, because legal team within the in-house, and I think it was mentioned before also in the morning session, the TAT is a very important area. So considering the TAT of our regular deliverables, this also needs to be worked together, but it's worth working on this. Reason being, the fruits that it's going to give in future is going to be good, as productive for all of us within the organization, and for us also as a learning curve as professionals, because learning technology together is very helpful. It's creating a lot of efficiencies within our work processes. So
Thanks. So it was an incredible experience. So let me go to probably the last question, and then we wrap up with a closing remark. Hussein, you are a professor on organizational behavior and management. So I would like to take some of your experience on that and actually talk about culture. So everything is about culture. We discuss everything is about people, it's about mindset. So which, in your view, are the variable in terms of people, culture, organization on the implementation of the technology? What we should be doing? So when we will all go back, we finish the conference, we will go back in our office, our law firm, or in our company, what we should be doing, and also being a model for our team.
Yeah, this is a very hard question. You didn't tell me to ask how to a hard question.
Sorry for that.
But by the way, just to let you know, if you go to research, you'll find different point of view, right? You'll find tons of variables telling you that if you use this variable, this will help your team do this and do this, do change. But just for the sake of time, I'm just gonna summarize them under three main variables: cultural variable, individual variables, and organizational based variable. So just as a brief, when I say cultural, I mean you need to have a result-based, result-oriented, job-oriented work environment, right? That drive people into excellence, that demand results, right? And this result-based culture will enable legal team to adopt legal technology faster than those who adopt maybe more old-fashioned work environment. This is one. If you go to the individual level, and there's a science behind it, if the system is very hard to use, people will not use it, right? And I know from my discussions with my CEO, we discuss how to make the software as much easy to use by lawyers. I don't want to put more details. This is like something in the company, but we always have weekly meeting just to say how to make this software easy to use by lawyers. You can imagine the discussion, the investment done on this. So basically, if it's easy to use, they will use it. If it's useful, if they perceive, and this is called perceived usefulness, right? If they perceive it as useful, they will use it, right? And if it's aligned with the company's objectives and strategic objectives, they will also use it. Of course, there's a lot of also different individual variables. And at the end, there's the organizational based variables, which like the leadership. If you have really a leader who is convinced that they should do better results when it comes to implementing information systems in the legal departments, this will definitely help, because as Vandana mentioned, if they are not aligned, things will be difficult. Plus, and this is something organizational from also my experience, you need to have a very good IT team that is supporting the process. A very well organized IT team, and we experience this with different accounts, big accounts in the in UAE and in the United States. They had a beautiful, very well organized IT team. They help a lot in the process. It was like very helpful. Yeah, I think I just summarized
Yes,
the
thanks a
most
lot.
important, but of course there are many other research variables to do that.
Thanks a lot. I think it's yeah, those are definitely three elements. I agree. There is probably the element about the organization. You are right; is very important. I tend also always to include one element when it comes to individual, where when I my team is also okay, time is done, which is also learn to unlearn. When it comes to new way of doing things, we need to have, we need to embrace and make sure that we really show to the organization, but to your team, that you are ready to unlearn. And it's always like a eye opening, right? Because you need to really to understand having an open mind. And the other ingredient, probably of the recipe to make the perfect cake or the perfect pizza, sorry if I say that, I'm Italian, just to stereotype, is also the diversity. To have an innovation mindset, you need to have a diverse team in terms of background, so going to what you're saying, if you bring only lawyers on a table without the CIO, you're not going to bring also, so diversity also in terms of background, in terms of age, in terms of, and then all the other ingredients of the inclusion diversity. So because when people feel that they can be themselves, then they can innovate. And with that is coming also the new way of doing things, because the technology per se, the tool needs to be friendly, but then the people needs to have the mindset. Okay, so let's go to the final 30 seconds. So please, we got the watch, that time is done. 30-second closing remark, and I would like to ask each of you then, when we started at the beginning, do we need to be afraid of artificial intelligence, or we do believe it's going to be an advantage for the future?
I don't think so, actually. In my view, as per my experience after COVID and due to the implementation of the artificial intelligence in our works, there is an increased requirement now for legal counsels, not only in-house, but also the law firms. Because if I link what I mentioned before, that you have a COVID-19, a force majeure, that is, as per the previous experience, it will render the performance to be impossible, and you can get your remedies for suspension or termination. But with the continuation of the works, it's very difficult to find your remedies under the contract, and it's adding to have a lot of legal counsels, law firms, as well as experts, because at the end, if you get everybody concentrate on the extension of time, but they forget about disruptive costs. So the COVID has disrupted a lot, actually, the works, how it's mentioned. And due to the AI, we are actually very successful in collecting all the data, and a lot of claim consultants and experts are required, actually, nowadays, due to the digitization technologies. Thank you.
I think that it's always, it's not to get scared of using the AI technology or the digitizations, because it always creates an kind of sense of accountability, the responsibility, and to ensure the compliance of applicable laws. Few of our friends talked about data privacy, the contract management. So these all will create a lot of I would say it will more often create a lot of increase the efficiency level, where the lawyers can spend more time on the other commercial activities, get into the businesses, get into the CXO level discussions, get in more into the other productive work, getting into more into the day-to-day firefighting. And rather also it could take the company to the next level, a $1 billion company, or it take to the next level growth, etc. So this is much I can talk about.
So I think query was getting scared, correct? So nothing to scare about, but yeah, lawyers should know the tech part, because automation is nothing to scare about. It's going to help around. So currently, if I come back, what is automated within my system, just quickly, because we have 30 seconds. Contract is in the process of automation. We have litigation management within the automation tool. We have KYC automation. We have secretarial compliance as automated. So the bandwidth that actually team gets is getting into a lot of productive work, and they can also see their growth. So nothing altogether to scare about, but I think it's a very good medium that we should start adapting. It will take time, but once the result is there, it's going to help all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Hussein, I hope you're going to say something somehow
No,
that is going
of course I'm going to
be
say something
afraid.
else. They're lawyers. Of course I'm going to say something else. So what I'm saying, yes, they should be afraid.
Okay.
But who should
We
be
need to be
afraid?
afraid.
Who should be afraid? I think, yeah, I think the people who rely on repetitive tasks to do their jobs, these people should be afraid.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that all lawyers are that. I know, but they need to know that they should add innovation to their work. And if they do not do that, if they only rely on repetition and less automation, they will be replaced. And maybe I'm going to trigger some red lines here, but at the end of the day, this is what I think. I'm seeing this. People who do not embrace technology will be left behind. And this is my conclusion, right? This is my conclusion. And of course, I'm going to say something else other than lawyers. Excuse me for that. Thank you very much.
No, thanks a lot, and thanks for your closing remark. So thanks for listening, and thanks for our panelists, and a little applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all the panelists. In respect of time, I think we can just take one question from the floor, if there's any question.
Sorry.
Okay, there.
We have a question.
Yeah, just one. I'm so sorry.
Hi, good afternoon. Prior to pandemic, COVID-19, prior to pandemic, force majeure clause.
I'm so sorry, if you mind to just stand up.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a
Am I
quick
audible?
introduction, please.
I'm Ashish Verma. I'm from Delhi. Prior to pandemic, the concept of force majeure clauses in the contractual terms used to be very, very general standard. No one used to give much heed to it. But now post-pandemic, it has all of a sudden become a major force in the contractual obligations as far as the parties dealing is concerned. Now, my question to the learned panelists is that in terms of the AI and the technological adoption that we're talking about, how do we see the future in terms of the growth of the middle segment? Industries which are technically and primarily established, they're easily adopting to AI, no doubts about it. But the middle segments are actually facing still the crisis in terms of handling the situation. And if you could possibly enlighten us on that particular perspective, that would be very kind. Thank you.
Sure, I will try. I don't know. You wanna? Yeah, I mean, I can try. I mean, I will try to answer and see if I capture correctly your question. So the what you say that is about technology require big investment. So there are organizations like Accenture or LT that, of course, have investment and able to support that investment. And there are other organizations that are probably less equipped. And then when it comes to force majeure, we had the situation that actually we were able to continue to provide the services during the pandemic, and other organizations that were less equipped with technology were less equipped. And then how are we going to read that force majeure provision? Is that correct? Okay, my understanding. So I think maybe there are two questions in it: is how I'm going to embrace technology, and then how this is going to imply. So maybe Hussein can help me, because he's definitely providing the services also to let's say to law firm that are not big law firm, but also to in-house lawyer, in-house legal team that are small in-house legal team. So, but based on my experience, actually, when it comes to technology, there are moments where technology require big investment, but there are moments actually that the big investment is not there anymore because technology is more accessible for everyone. And at the same time, when it comes to change and having changes, I could also say that the big organization, they have a huge investment and a lot of money, they're less agile. So I wouldn't say that as a constraint, actually. I think I do believe that organizations that are not, big multinational company, they are more agile and they are able probably to embrace much quicker. So I would see that an opportunity rather than, I know that investment money may make a difference, but big organization, they can scale the investment, yes, but also before they change, it may take more time in terms of decision making. So I think there is always the right balance. So there is one side agility, but then you cannot scale necessarily the way you want to scale. So it means that the technology should be accessible. And the other side instead is about you are ready, you really are quicker. And actually in a pandemic, you are definitely quicker before a big multinational company change. I don't know, Hussein, if you agree in terms of.
I totally agree. You gave the beautiful example about the big companies and small companies. They are more agile. Yeah, they can adapt change immediately. And about the cost of adapting technology, I think it's very accessible, as you said, and I know it's accessible. So yeah, I think these two variables are very important to increase the likelihood of adoption of softwares.
And actually, that's where the startups are also coming. So I think, also the big organizations are trying to attract startups when they offer the services because they want to make sure that they are agile at the same time that startups.
Yeah, I would like to add. Yeah, I would like to add, actually, you are right about the generic provision of the remedies for COVID-19 in the contracts. And it has to be redrafted, as I mentioned before. Like maybe we have some in the standard contracts, some provisions that will entitle you for extension of time when there is an epidemic due to the shortage of manpower or the delay in the important deliveries. Or there may be some provision under the law, which is very generic, which is about the exceptional circumstances that's influenced by the imprevision doctrine under the French law, which maybe the judge has to interfere to bring balance back to the contract, but it's a very narrow road, and it's not encouraging to use that because it requires the interpretation of the judges. And during the financial crisis, it was not encouraging also here in Dubai or in UAE. It requires a lot of demonstration. So you're right from that perspective. And also that extension of time provision under the standard contracts here in the area, the employers will strike it out from the contracts. So we will find out without any remedies under the contract. And that's why it has to be redrafted. But the second question is very important, and we are facing that issues for our technologies that, okay, big contractors, big companies, they are investing in technologies. But what about like the supply chain for the small companies? Because we are having our suppliers and some local subcontractors that need to be on site. And we are using, as an example, the ERP, we are using simulation, we are using mobile apps for reporting, for everything, and it doesn't synchronize with their technology. They don't have the technology. But for them to survive, everybody, irrespective if small or big, has to invest in technology in the future, definitely. Thanks.
All right. All right, thank you so much. So with that, we come to the end of the session. Can we have a big round of applause for the speakers and the panelists?